Okay, so always same people, and welcome back to your favorite YouTube channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen of the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you do stay to the end of the video because there is a bonus pair in store. But before we progress into the analysis, we'll go through my Aussie dollar trade quickly. If there is a particular pair you do want to see my analysis to, feel free to skip ahead and use the timestamps at the bottom of the video. And of course, make sure you do stay to the end because there is a bonus pair in store. But first things first, let's head over to Aussie dollar. So we did have NFP this week and it did result in a pretty big move to the downside. In fact, let me go to a different broker. There we go. So this is the position I had. Longs from this area was a little bit late to the party, but the most important thing to me was the stop loss placement underneath that low, because that's effectively where I would be wrong in the position. So I did enter a little bit late, but the entry was off the back of the retest of 0.67. This was an opportunity which I was talking about coming into the week. Of course, as we can see, the level didn't hold and NFP was originally in my direction. However, price did take a big turn and was very, very bearish, and dollar was very, very bullish. Hence why I got that big bearish candle breaking through the level and taking me out the position. Now, I'm still long bias on Aussie dollar. There are a couple of areas I'm looking to buy from now that our first area hasn't held. So 0.664, a level which I will be speaking a lot about next week, but we're almost at the moment. And this low down here at 0.66, pretty much on the dot. These are the two other areas which I'm interested. If we were to break through both of them, I will then reconsider my analysis. But we'll get more into that when we actually do take a look at Aussie dollar properly. But that was the position I had this week. I did miss a long on gold, but I've been very busy, so I haven't had the time, so unfortunately missed that long. But we'll get to that position when we do get onto gold later in the video. But let's get back to Euro USD. So Euro USD still long buy, still looking for a push back into the high here at 1.125 roughly. And I'm still looking at this bearish move as a pullback. So I'm looking for buying opportunities. I was looking to buy it off this low here this week at 1.1, pretty much on the dot. Just missed it, unfortunately, and then we saw a move to the upside. So I was wondering, is Euro USD just going to continue back to the high? And it well could do. I know NFP has caused a bit of a reaction there. We do look pretty bearish with that last 4-hour candle, but I'm not completely sold yet. We still may push higher and see that follow through back to the high, or we might now see a deeper pullback, a larger correction back to that 1.1 area and potentially back to 1.09. Which is my second level of interest before looking to take some buys. So the plan is similar to Aussie dollar in terms of still looking for longs, but now after NFP, we might see another drive to the downside, a bigger pullback, and then possibly the continuation at some point later in time, maybe later next week or maybe the week after, depends how long this follow through does take. But I am still very long bias on Euro USD. Zoom out to the daily time frame, you can still see the higher highs and higher lows pretty consistent of the higher high there, looking for the next higher low. If I whip out the Fibonacci from the low to the high, you can see we've got the 0.5, 0.618 in those areas. So if we can see that another drop to the downside, that extended pullback, retest 1.1, retest 1.095, either which area, looking for the long back to the high there and looking to capitalize on that swing. So very bullish on Euro USD still, Euro USD still, but we might see a bigger pullback next week. So I'm not really interested in the shorts, but maybe day trading, there could be some nice shorts in the meantime. For me, I'm just gonna be waiting for the long opportunity. So this is what I'll be looking for next week, and hopefully I can find some buys from 1.1 or 1.095 for next week. Okay, so over to dollar yen. So dollar yen, very bearish this week. The yen pairs were falling. It's gonna be some interesting moves next week with the yen pairs. I'm very interested in them. Dollar yen, I was actually looking for a move back to the high this week. We saw a nice breakout of this smaller descending channel here on the 4-hour. So I expect momentum to pick up. And if we got the break of 147, I said I was looking for the retest for the buy back to the high. Of course, as we can see, that didn't happen. Price respected 147 and we had a big sell off to the downside. So now with how things are shaping up, I'm just expecting more of the same and more of these lower lows and lower highs. There's a nice area of confluence up here. Should we get that bigger pullback? I've marked around this 144.800 level, which is a retest of that swing high there. Should we get that bigger pullback, I would expect that to act as resistance and help price continue in this bearish path. I've also marked out some key lows, key swing lows, where the market could be interested in. We've got the swing low here at 141, definitely need to watch out for that. And we've got a really key level of resistance and support here on the daily time frame around 138, which could be drawing price there as well. So there is a lot of room to the downside back into these areas. And after we're seeing this momentum on the daily, weekly as well, if I just, as you can see, really strong close to the downside, there's a good chance that next week we're going to see more of the same. Of course, the plan is just look for a pullback really to look for that lower high. We might see a shallow one, retesting this low here and then continue. But I would rather have the bigger pullback to see if that can happen. There are other yen pairs I'm looking at as well, not just dollar yen, but I would be expecting more downside. So targets for dollar yen, 141. Should we break through that, we could probably look at 138 as the next big area. But to me, dollar yen are likely to see more downside. So keep an eye out for a quick retest off the low here. That might be the best opportunity if we don't have that bigger pullback. So 143.500, keep an eye. If not, 144.800 looks good, and expecting a swing all the way back down to 141, potentially 138 as well next week. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, I'm still bearish with this one. We've had a bit of a lift to the upside this week. Of course, NFP really did help with that on Friday. I am still really bearish on this one longer term. Scaling to the weekly chart, again, we've got this massive range at play. Really solid rejection off the high of the range, really big drop. Now I'm looking for us to eventually hit the low end of the range. Of course, we'll probably take our time there. This is the weekly time frame. I'm not expecting this to happen in a matter of a few days. It might take its time. It could consolidate back and forth for a while before even making the move. So the plan is not necessarily to swing it back to the low, but to be looking for primarily shorts on that way down. You can see on the monthly chart as well, really strong bearish engulfing candle. I'm expecting to see some follow through at some point in September as well. And we have broken through a really key level of support here on the daily time frame, actually on the weekly as well. As we can see, resistance there, support there as well. I am looking for price to come back into that area and see some downside. So very much looking for shorts next week for dollar CAD around this 1.36 area. We'll see how price gets there, because at the moment we've had a really solid move, and maybe price might just go and break through that if dollar's going to remain strong from NFP. So I really need to see price come into this area, reject it, and then look for my entry signals. I'll be working on the 4 hour time frame for my entries, just to give me a bit more time to look for them and not too worry about really refining it too much, especially because there's a lot on my plate at the moment. But I'm looking at dollar CAD shorts from that area. Hopefully you can see a retest early in the week. And again, nothing crazy, back to the swing low there around 1.345. Like I said, expecting this long term, but I'm not expecting a smooth run. Probably consolidate, do something like this with dollar CAD. It's not very very clean pair. So for next week, keep it simple, back down to 1.345. Risk reward's looking pretty good there. 1 to 2s, 1 to 3s, 1 to 4s, maybe even more depending on your entry. So the risk reward is definitely there, and it's a really nice opportunity. So dollar CAD back down to 1.345 after a retest of 1.36 will be the play I'm looking at next week. Okay, so next up we've got Euro Pound. So Euro Pound, I'm still very bearish on. It hasn't done much for the past few days, as you can see, which has been doji or small body candle. Hasn't really been moving much, but I am looking for a big sell back into the lows here and eventually back into this monthly level. If I go to the monthly chart, I'm looking for us to come back into this resistance, into this support level here around 0.83. So I am expecting us to keep selling off. Now, Euro Pound isn't really a free flowing pair, so it's going to take its time, which is good because it normally gives us opportunities to get into the trade. It just might not move with a lot of momentum. It might move in stages and take its time. But yeah, if I get a good opportunity, I can't complain. So with Euro Pound, I'm looking for some shorts around 0.845 and 0.85 up there. If I go to the daily chart really quickly, you can see a massive level of price support here. Lovely resistance there as well, looking for the retest for the sell. Or if we don't see a bigger pullback to get to that area, I'm looking at this area here again, which we have moving pretty well, nice and corrective. So as not like price has been looking like it's about to reverse, if we can keep that up, see a nice rejection there, I will be looking for some downside from that 0.845 area and a continuation back into the low. And then maybe we'll see a push back into the monthly level. I'll be trading stops, so I won't have that target in place So should we see the break, hopefully I can capitalize on it. But of course, the market could easily rebound off that low and start pushing against me. So we'll be trailing and we'll protect ourselves just in case that was to happen. But in terms of the analysis of direction, you can see the market has been ever so slowly but surely moving to the downside. So we do have some downtrend here, which we're looking to continue. And should we see a bigger pullback to this area, we're looking to short. We're being consistent with the lower highs. It's just about trying to catch the next one. So keep eyes peeled on the 0.845 area and 0.85. But I am looking for us to come back down into the lows and eventually to 0.83 in the next coming days or potential weeks. But that's the plan I'm looking at for Euro-Pound next week. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar looking for some buys still. As we've broken through that area around 0.67, I'm now focused on 0.665 and 0.66 pretty much on the dot. These are my two levels of interest now, looking for the same move, looking for a push to the upside, back into the high there, and eventually back into 0.686, which is this level up there if we go to the daily time frame. This high over there. So that is the plan I'm looking at for Aussie dollar. This is the area I'm looking to buy from, and then my last resort would be the low here, kind of like a weird inverse head and shoulder pattern. Where is there it is. So there's your left shoulder, there's your head, and there's your right shoulder. I know it's not looking very orthodox, but it still fits the idea, and I'm looking for that high low at some point to push back to the upside. So that's the plan I have for Aussie dollar. Now, we had a really exceptionally bearish candle there in the 4 hour. So again, we could open up bearish and just see price continue to melt off the back of NFP. Maybe that momentum is still there with that dollar strength. So I need to see how price is going to be reacting with this area. And then I'll be looking for my entries if I'm seeing suitable rejection. If not, then of course I will stay on the sidelines and wait for that to happen at one of these two areas. And if you break through both, then I'll just be reanalyzing Aussie dollar at that point, and I won't be interested to do much because I have my bias, I have the swing I'm looking for. If we break through my areas and invalidate my opportunity, then there's other pairs I'll be looking at. So at that point I'll back off and just wait for the weekend, reanalyze and go again. But for now, that's what I'm looking at for Aussie dollar, back to at least 0.679, and then we can speak about the high over there because of course this has proven to be sturdy resistance. So let's not buy off more than we can chew, but for now this is the opportunity I'm looking at. So let's see what we can do at 0.665 and 0.66, and hopefully we can get some buys next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so over to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, I was looking for some buys this week for this one. At the point we were opening was around here, so I said the buys early on could happen because we had that retest and I was looking for price to continue off the back of that, but the retest failed, and now it looks like price is back underneath this zone and holding as resistance. If I scoot to the daily chart, I was looking for price to break above this daily high here and just simply push back to the next swing high and maybe beyond that. But it does look like this level here at 0.84 is holding pretty strong. So should we break through some support on the 4 hour, which I'll mention in a moment, I do think there's a lot of room to the downside for NZD CAD because we've had resistance here, price broke through but failed to sustain that, and now we're back there again and respecting it again, especially with those wicks there and the fact that we failed to continue higher. You would now expect to see price react with that level. So in my eyes, there's a lot of room to the downside, and if we're to break through this 4 hour support, which I've marked here around did it again, did it 3 times there, I was pressing the wrong button, 0.35, 0.835, if we're to break through that, then I'm expecting the floodgates to open and looking at some opportunities there to the downside, because at that point, we've rejected the daily level very firmly, we're holding strong, and now I'm setting price just to continue back to the low. And this looks like a nice head and shoulder pattern as well, with the left head and the right shoulder, and of course that being the neckline. So should we get below that, get some retest going, I'm expecting a lot more downside there for NZD CAD in the next few days, and possibly move back down to 0.821 and 0.815. I've marked out some areas on the daily chart where you could be expecting price to come back and revisit, and maybe eventually this swing low, but that will be a story for another day. So NZD CAD looking at downside, looks like price is giving us a big fake out to the upside there. So now I'm expecting price to follow through in the opposite direction. We got targets around 0.821 and a break of this level here, 0.835, will for me then start to validate the short, and then I can look for some opportunities on the back of that. So that will be the plan going to next week for NZD CAD. Okay, so over to pound NZD. So this one is testing a very critical level on the daily. I'll be looking to short this, but the setup I was looking for coming into this week did not form. I was looking for the retest of this low here with a nice trend line confluence there as well. So I was looking for a lower high around that area, but we broke through, had some NZD news, and price has been looking bullish since then. However, I'm only looking to short pound NZD, and as we approach this high here, I am looking for us to find resistance and see some follow through. There's a big level here on the daily chart around 2.09, which I do expect us to come and test. However, if we do break above the high here, then I'm expecting us just to continue back to 2.15, which is where we got the resistance up there. And we did come back to revisit this area briefly not long ago over there, as we can see. So pound NZD, it really is make or break at this area. Now we respect that a few times, then we had a solid push up after NFP. So it really depends what we do going into next week. Do we come back down, start respecting it, and then get the sell? Or is price using that NFP momentum just to push on? And we're going to see a break. And at that point, we're looking for the retest for price to continue higher. So I can see some buys, I can see some sells. It really depends what we do on that area. We've already broken through that and lost that trend line confluence. So the setup I'm looking at has developed. But I still do have that high time frame short bias. So I will be looking for sells, but of course, if I don't see the necessary price action for that, potentially we're going to get the breakout and some buys back to 2.15, which still is a good opportunity, because if we do get there, then I'm expecting the sells to kick back in. So it might be a shorter term buy for a long term sell, but still an opportunity to keep an eye out if you're looking to trade pound NZD next week. So keep a close eye on 2.12. Right now, it looks like price kind of 50-50, whether it's breaking above or not, or rejecting. So we need some more candlesticks, more information next week. But if we do hold, expecting push back down to the low. If we don't, looking for the break and retest back to 2.15 next week. Okay, so over to CAD yen. So pretty bearish this week, and again, all the yen pairs doing the same thing. We have come into a pretty critical level here at 105, and price has broken out that consolidation. So if I zoom out to the higher time frames, this 105 level has been pretty sturdy and has rejected price pretty well. So there could actually be some nice buys here, but should we break to the downside, I do have a feeling that we will do, because I'm expecting the yen pairs to probably keep this momentum up. So if CAD yen does break through 105, the next area I'm expecting us to get to would be 100 or 101 at least, which is around this area here. So there's a lot of room to the downside should we break 105 at the moment. Of course, we've just seen a solid candle closure into that level. We could respect it next week, see some upside. So it really depends if we get the breakout. If we do, then of course looking for retest and some more downside, something like this back to 101. I feel like that could be a really nice trade. However, in the meantime, might be some nice buys to take advantage of, at least back into this 106 kind of area, which is this level here, 106.280, which is where I was looking for the retest originally, but we kind of saw that during NFP. So still bearish on CAD yen. I do think there's more downside in store, but we need to break 105, and then I expect the floodgates to open. If not, there might be some nice buys to start the week off. I'm not really bullish on the yen pairs, so I'm not going to be looking at taking any buys. But if we can break through, great. We'll look for some opportunities on the retest or a lower high somewhere. We'll have to see how price develops, but that's more or less what I'm looking for, and targets around 101 for next week. Okay, so over to pound USD. So it's been an awkward one. I've been looking for some buys on the retest of this high here at 1.305. Didn't quite happen this week. We did have a really nice pullback. Price was descending in this channel here. I was hoping we could just see a little bit more downside before we get the buy. Unfortunately, price kind of broke to the upside. But of course, with the back of NFP, maybe price is going to have another push to the downside to retest that area. The buys are still valid for me. I know that candle looks a bit scary, but the analysis really stems from the higher time frames, and nothing's really changed in the higher time frames yet. It's still seeing higher highs and higher lows consistently. So under the impression that we're going to continue that until we don't. I've marked on 1.33 as a pretty big level on the weekly chart, which I think we've got a good chance to getting to. And then maybe we can speak about some shorter reverse opportunities or counter opportunities once we get there. But for now, I'm still looking to be a part of the buy. So 1.305 is still my area of interest, and after that rejection from NFP, looks like there's a good chance we could actually make that happen. And then of course I'll see how we look, how we're retesting, and if I do get the necessary price action I'm after, I'll be looking for a swing back to 1.3, at least the high here, of course, 1.326. Yeah, there's not much difference between them, but we well could come up into the high and come back down again. So be aware of that swing high there as well as a nice target to aim for. But that is the plan for next week for pound USD. Okay, so over to pound CAD. So pound CAD, I'm still bullish on this one. I'm looking for buys, but price needs to come a lot lower before I do any of that. I'm looking for roughly around this 1.76 area for a push to the upside. If I expand to the higher time frames, you can see the market's been pretty consistent with these higher highs and higher lows, and I'm now looking for the retest of this zone for another push to the upside. However, price is of course nowhere near that, and at the moment we're still rejecting this sturdy monthly level resistance. So sells do make sense, they're just not really my type of trade, so I won't be looking to get involved in any of those. But should we see the market sell off from that area, then I'll be looking to see if I can take advantage of some buys back up again. But if you're looking to sell, it is in the zone for it, stop loss above the high. If the market is going to hold this monthly zone, that's where I do expect it to turn from, and you do have a lot of room to the downside as well. If I quickly go back to the monthly chart, you can see this is the monthly resistance I am referring to. Solid resistance there, minus the fake out over there. But as we can see, market has held it very, very well since 2017 roughly. So there is a good chance that we do reject and see some downside. It's always a bit more difficult to call the tops, but this is not a bad area to see it happen and expect it to happen. But I'm going to stay in line with that trend on the higher time frame. So if we do come back down, I'll see if I can look to pick it back up again. But of course, we're a long way away, so I'm not expecting really the setup to form for next week. So if you're interested, it's more the sells you'd be after for now, at least. And then, yeah, we'll speak about some buys later on, but that is the plan. That's what I'm looking at next week for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound yen, another yen pair. So we're looking pretty bearish here. As we can see, the market is now breaking out this consolidation. I was referring to this range here. Last week, I said the buys look good on the break and retest. Hopefully, we can get a bigger pullback, potentially to this area on the left, around 196, and then possibly some sells from then on. But the market had other plans. We created that lower high there, which was just a big fake out. Market bled back inside the range, and now we're actually breaking it to the downside. So a really nice textbook fake out there. So all I'm expecting going into next week is more the same, more downside. But of course, what I'll be after is a pullback first, and then looking to capitalize on a retest and hopefully follow that momentum to the downside. I've marked out a nice daily level of support where we could be attracted towards around 178, 179. Massive support here a couple times, almost there as well with that wick. I do think the market could be gravitated, is that the right word? Gravitated? Could gravitate towards that area, there we go, and possibly come back into this low here as well. That could be your first target or first major target, because yeah, it's pretty far away. We're still talking about 200-300 pips there, so it's not a small distance at all. But I do still see pound yen falling. I think most of the yen pairs will gain steam and pick up with this momentum here. So if we can find some nice pullbacks, should be looking at some really nice trades back down to 183 and hopefully 180, 179 soon come. But that will be the plan next week for pound yen. Okay, so over to gold. So gold, I'm still expecting upside, but it's been a tough week for this one, back and forth, back and forth. I'll be waiting for price to break the high. I was looking for the opportunity in the retest of this area here, 2480, but I missed it. That was the gold position I was referring to at the start of the video. I missed the position. To be fair, probably would have resulted in the break even anyway. Bought here, tagged that first level, and then tagged out after NFP. So didn't really miss too much in the end. But now that price is respecting the high again for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 time, now it becomes a little bit choppy. But I do think if we do get a breakout, it's going to be very, very interesting, because gold in the higher time frames is still pushing to the upside, still consistent with the higher low. So as long as we maintain this, I do think gold will eventually get that breakout. But of course, if I'm going to buy it, I do want to wait for that momentum to break through, showing the buyers are back in control. So break of 24, 25 30, sorry, would be my go-to setup now, and looking for some opportunities on the back of that. I've marked out 2600 as a nice psychological level, which price may be looking to get to next once we break the high. But yeah, we've had a really tough time trying to break through this area. Hopefully we can get the breakout soon, and then find some opportunities on the retest. But that will be the analysis, or at least the setup I'm after next week for gold. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, we're back at the lower end of this channel, and as you can see, price has had a tough time in this channel. We failed to see the continuation back to the high. You can see every time we've had a bounce off the low, we've always made it back to the high, but this time the market didn't have enough steam to get there, and now we're back at the low again. So if you're looking to buy Bitcoin, this is the time to do it, or at least the time to start looking for some entries, because now that we're back at this low, if the market is going to hold this and see another swing, this is where we're going to do it. But because we didn't get back to the high, I do have less confidence that we will see that move. And in fact, if you do see price break to the downside, that does open up the door to a lot of downside there, and a lot of room for price to sell off into. So if you're looking for the breakout, I would be keeping a very close eye on that, because I've got a feeling price may do that. But if you do see some sturdy reactions and some sturdy rejection there on the 4 hour, it does look like prices had a nice reaction, but I want to see a bit more momentum than that. Find some entries there, and if so, you can be looking to ride that back to the high. Probably take some profits around the 50% of that range where we've got the line there. But if we were to hold, that could be a nice move back to the high around 68, 70k. So that will be analysis going to next week for Bitcoin. Okay, so now on to Euro JPY, the bonus pair for this week. So we are looking pretty bearish here, another yen pair. As we can see, lovely move to the downside, taking out some of these lows. So I would be expecting that momentum to continue into next week. We do have a massive level of support here, around 155. And I would expect us to eventually hit that target. Maybe not next week, but eventually. And I have marked out a nice level of support in the daily time frame. Should we come back and revisit, I do think will be a nice place to look for some short entries and hopefully catch a swing to the downside. Now, it's been a pretty big move, so I'm unsure if we will see that bigger pullback into that low. This is where I was talking about on Friday would be a nice place to short, to see that next lower high. We have one over there, second there, potentially a third, and then we can see the follow through. But price may just be a bit too bearish to get there, so we could be looking at some intraday retest in some of these areas here on the lower time frames, and that might be the best opportunity that Euro Yen gives you. Of course, we'll find that out next week, but this is where I'll be looking to find some entries, looking for that lower high and a push back down to 155,500. Like I said, big level of support on the daily, weekly time frame. So I do see us coming back into that area, probably quicker than expected if that momentum does sustain. So Euro Yen, looking at some shorts, hopefully a pullback. Hopefully we can see a pullback to 160.315. If not, keep an eye on some of the intraday levels. They might be the best opportunity to find if you are looking to short. But that, guys, does bring us to the end of the video. If you have enjoyed the analysis, please be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And of course, make sure you do hit the bell so you don't miss out on any streams or uploads in the future. Make sure you do check out the Elevating Traders Discord channel. That is completely free to join. It's linked in the description. Discount opportunities will be available there when we do launch. But guys, really appreciate you tuning in. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you all next time.